The Spirit Catches You and You Fall Down is a story about Leah Lee, a Hmong girl with epilepsy. Leah's story reveals the dangers of a lack of cross-cultural communication in the medical profession. When Leah was 3 months old, her sister Yer slammed a door and Leah had her first seizure. Her parents, Phao and Nico, believed that the noise of the door had caused her soul to flee. They diagnosed her with Quag Dab Peg, which translates to the Spirit catches you and you fall down. While they were concerned for Leah's safety, they also believed that her seizures made her special, as many epileptics were chosen to be shamans in the Hmong culture. They brought her for treatment to the Merced Community Medical Center, which they also utilized traditional healing methods and engaged a shaman to call back her soul. The family believed that too much medicine could limit the effectiveness of the spiritual healing. Leah's rationalist doctors, on the other hand, treated Leah's epilepsy purely as a neurological disorder. Her primary physicians tried to provide proper medical care, however. The problem was not even correctly diagnosed until a few months after Leah's first visit to the hospital. This was due to a lack of interpreters. Leah's medical regimen was complicated, and her parents were either unable to follow the instructions or unwilling to do so. They were unhappy with the side effects of the medication and may not have understood the connection between a seizure and its effects on the brain, nor the necessity of giving anticonvulsants to Leah. The Lee's actions had terrible side effects on Leah, and as Leah was home, she had more and more seizures and began to show signs of mental retardation. Concerned for Leah's safety, Neil notified Child Protective Services and had Leah placed into foster care. Leah's social worker taught Phao, however, how to administer Leah's medication so that the family could be reunited. 4 months after returning home, however, Leah went into status epilepticus and had to stay at the hospital for 14 nights. 2 months later, she had another grand mal seizure, which ended up not stopping. It turned out she went into septic shock, and the condition left her brain dead. Leah's doctors said that she would die soon and allowed the family to take her home. However, she did not die for another long 26 years later. Her family continued to love and care for her, and each year they brought a shaman in as a ceremony to ease her suffering. The main point is to emphasize the dangers of cross-cultural communication when it comes to medical situations. In this story, it cost the girl her life because her parents didn't properly understand the situation that the doctors had told her. It has to be an emphasis to translate the proper information.
Our first theme is cultural compromise. In The Spirit Catches You and You Fall Down, the compromise of culture plays a big part in how the story unfolds. Within each culture, a kinship is formed. Ways of life are shared with one another, and it creates great diversity. Fadiman wants the doctors to consider their patient's story about their disease and to try to use a model of cooperation rather than forced. An example of this would be when Faul explained to Fadiman that she felt it was important to use both Western medicine and a shamanic ritual. The Hmong believe that sometimes people get sick due to something that happens to their soul or because they encounter an evil spirit called the Dab. An illness like this requires a spiritual healing, which can be seen as less effective when medication is used. Faul felt that the doctors wouldn't let them give just a little medication because they didn't understand the soul. Had they done this, they might have been able to engage in cultural compromise, inviting a shamanic ritual to work alongside the doctors who might have been able to convince the family that the amount of medication prescribed was beneficial. Leah's former hospital has since successfully adopted similar practices. With such a great difference in kinship between the two cultures, there was a lack of understanding that caused great turmoil. This could have all been avoided if both sides compromised their cultures, communicated in a more effective way, and came to understand one another.
Our second theme from the book is power, and the lack of power that is afforded to the Hmong refugees. In Laos, they were able to freely follow their culture and to live independently, but when they came to the United States, their freedoms were greatly reduced. Because of welfare, these people were forced to rely on others for help, just to stay afloat. This was largely because of the rarity of jobs that did not require someone who spoke fluent English, along with other skills that they lacked. The Hmong people felt like they just didn't belong, and they were even scared of the American judicial system, which dealt with crime and criminals in a way that was completely foreign to them, and not what they were used to in Laos. The biggest power struggle, however, for the Lees had to be the fact that they were no longer the final judgment maker for their child. To conclude this video presentation, we really just wanted to say that this book has really opened our eyes to some of the challenges and the things that are going on around the world, and even in our backyard here in America. We have learned that these concepts that we have learned throughout the class are not just things that are definitions out of a textbook, but they're real situations and patterns that happen all over the world today.